is a lot that comes at you when you are diagnosed with a massive life-changing disease. Today's topic is the 5 things I wish I knew when I was first diagnosed with MS. This month marks my 11-year anniversary with MS. It was a complete surprise. No one in my family has multiple sclerosis. I didn't know really what it was. When I was diagnosed, Jamie Lynn Siegler had not come out and shared her story. Christina Applegate had not been diagnosed. Selma Blair hadn't been diagnosed. Jack Osborne had. And so it's like, yeah, I sort of recollected that. It's just to me like one of those like bad things you don't want. And then suddenly I had it. I got this diagnosis and I decided that I would change the way I was living based on the things I knew about this disease and what I was going to need. And there was only so much I knew really at the beginning. You know, you educate yourself, you cannot figure it out all at once. And truly, when people go through these life situations and there's so much new knowledge being thrown at you, your prefrontal cortex, like where you're taking in information, making decisions, it does start to get a little burned out. And I should do a newsletter about this at some point, because it is really fascinating to like understand how your brain is processing new information and how at a little points you start to feel a little stupid because one part of your brain is overloaded, and so like other parts aren't necessarily like recalling all the information you're used to having at your fingertips. So anyway, that is my long way of saying there is a lot that comes at you when you are diagnosed with a massive life-changing disease. I will call it life-altering because there are just these massive things that happen in your life that you don't see coming, and you do have to shift how you show up, how you act, how you react to be able to serve yourself. And I will say that in the MS community, I started to notice that it was just these people that got MS were these people like doing things, good, like go people. And then to suddenly have a diagnosis of a disease that was threatening to take away their ability to go, threatening their ability to perhaps walk in the future, threatening, you know, the existence that they had and their understanding of themselves. I think then that can spark a lot of resistance and a lot of, in some ways, denial to say, like, no, I'm not going to let it change me. And I did hear stories of friends, relatives of friends who really like sort of refused to be changed by it. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't change you. So what I did is I took stock to say, like, no, I'm going to understand not just the mechanics of what scientists and neurologists have been studying about this disease. That at that time was almost less important. It was more so understanding like what my body needed at a base level to repair, to thrive, to function. And so I took an approach that was heavily steeped in functional medicine. Which functional medicine means like you're sort of like you're not directed by a disease. You're more so looking at establishing a firm base of health. And from there, a lot of diseases or symptoms or problems that we're having within our body may change somewhat based on the fact that you are taking care of your body's needs within itself completely in more of a 360-degree view. And you're not just solely looking at addressing like one specific disease. I sort of brought both of those things in. I did not ignore the very informed neurologists that I was working with. And I also, though, did not forsake the fact that I'm in a whole human body and I needed to take care of it in many ways. So, without further ado, here are the 5 things that I would tell anyone if they are newly diagnosed, especially with multiple sclerosis or an autoimmune disease. Number 5, you need a care team. Establish your care team. That To me, that is a mix of your neurologists. So your experts in that conventional medicine sense, the people who have been studying this, who work with people day in and day out with whatever disease you have, that is extremely important because they are also up to date on the most current medicines, therapies, and other things. And I will tell you, I changed my neurologist at the very beginning because I could just tell the person I was working with had a little bit more of an antiquated view. He was in a smaller town. I called the MS Society. They sent me a list of their recommended neurologists and practitioners. And I went to a bigger city for my healthcare twice a year. Also working with a functional health practitioner. So I worked with a nurse practitioner who started to take my hormone levels. We started to look at the food that I was eating and looked at these other baselines of health, other markers of what's going on in my body, because you can't ignore what your hormones are doing and the effects that they have within your body. Because I had done that plenty. I had been a New Yorker who got up in the morning, drank a big iced coffee, did not eat until lunch, worked round the clock, and that was such a drive. And there was just too much stress in my life, too much cortisol, not enough sleep. And like you are really going to tear up your body if you're not working with your hormones. Your healthcare team, it can be all different. I had chiropractors, but gentle chiropractors who worked with people with MS. Even finding massage therapists, super important. But I just learned that if people don't have a knowledge of how people with MS react to massage, it it can end up not feeling good afterwards. So lymphatic massage instead of sports massage, I had to change those things. But starting to have people you trust and you can go back and see month after month or year after year and start to work with them, it gives you some sort of feeling of security in a situation where you may not feel secure, because it's a huge life change. Number four, um, there there are a lot of answers out in the world, but I did not Google what would happen to me with MS. I specifically at the very beginning, I resisted the inclination to try to look for worst case scenarios, look for what could happen in some sort of just like, churning through the internet way. I knew that that is not what my mind needed. Look at who has the disease, who's doing well. Look to people for inspiration who can teach you great things. So Dr. Terry Walls, she has a book. She has, I think, probably more than one book. But thankfully, at the time I was diagnosed, her book had just come out. And I looked at that as a huge benefit. Number three, look at what you're eating. And I will say, like, do some experiments on yourself in a healthy way, in a safe way. But the Whole30 was a very easy way for me to educate myself about food and inflammatory foods. And if an autoimmune disease, if inflammation is the problem with an autoimmune disease, which it is, and in MS, that means the inflammation, the cells in your immune system are firing on certain parts of your body, whereas MS, they're firing on your spine, your spinal cord, and your brain. I wanted to decrease that immune activity as much as possible, which means decreasing inflammatory foods. And the big five are alcohol, sugar, dairy, gluten, and what's the fifth? I'll figure that out. But, so it's like obviously cutting out all the fun stuff in life. But I did it. And the Whole30 sort of walks you through how you can do this. And it's not something you have to do forever, but it's an elimination diet, and it gives you the information about, why it is important, how to do it, recipes, all of that. They've got a huge community now surrounding those resources for the Whole30. When I did that, I thought that gluten had no effect on my body, and then I went without it for a while and then ate some, and it re-energized these weird nerve feelings in my body. I was like, oh, well, quite clearly it is having an effect. And so this is important to know and notice. And in the times in these 11 years when I have either on purpose or accidentally had gluten, in Europe, I have on purpose had gluten. In here, I have just accidentally had it and I have felt like crap. And so, yes, like you can be diagnosed with a disease, you can have a disease, and you can feel like crap every day, but there are things you can change that take the power away from that disease making you feel bad, and you can then instead feel better in spite of it. Bringing me to, we're on number 2. At the time I was diagnosed, I really did not want to sort of go down that conventional medicine path and be on some weird, bizarre drug, that I wasn't familiar with. But then I realized how much progress had been made and that these options that I had available to me were not made available to people a decade or two before. And I did not want to waste all of this amazing science. I realized that I had an opportunity that so many people would have begged for. And I did give it I did pursue that conventional medicine path. And I still do. And I have changed at different times, changed because of being pregnant, changed because of, breastfeeding and just different needs with my body. And that's why it is, going back to the care team, it is very important that you have a neurologist that you trust, that you can have conversations around like pros and cons of different medicines. It is important that you educate yourself and understand your own lifestyle factors and what's important to you. And, while being diagnosed with something makes you feel helpless, a lot of the times you can take some control back by educating yourself, by having very frank conversations with experts. And don't forget that that is available to you. And then the last and the number one thing that I wish I knew, or that I would tell anyone who is diagnosed with MS, is that life is uncertain, and that this is a reminder to live in the present moment. We can worry about the past, and they call that depression, and we can worry about the future, and they call that anxiety, or we can live in our present, see what is happening, see what we have available to us, take informed actions based on the information that we have available, be thoughtful, be respectful of our bodies and our lives, and really understand that this doesn't have to be the worst moment in your life. It can be a moment in your life that is not great, but that you can get through it. So those are my top 5. And then as a little postscript, a little extra, I will also say that your energy is very valuable, especially if you have MS. It is a disease of exhaustion, as they call it in Eastern medicine. Look at that. Honor your energy. Realize if there are people in your life or jobs in your life that are complete energy vampires, that's taking something away that is extremely valuable. And just honor that you have within it. And it does make you very aware of what you have available, and changes probably do need to be made. And it doesn't mean that you're a lesser person because you don't have the same energy. It means that you are choosy with how you spend your energy. And that is a powerful, powerful place to be, because then when you realize that, you make very concerted choices and you start to create a life surrounded by intentional moments, with intentional friendships and relationships, and your life can increase in its quality. It can feel even better than it did before, even though that seems to be something that there's, initially like so painfully distant from how you feel when you're diagnosed. Remember that your life can actually get better, even in the face of a disease. So There we go. My top 5 plus 1 extra tips for anyone who is facing an MS diagnosis. Know that you can get through these hard moments. So, thank you. As you can tell, I'm so passionate and I love having these conversations. And anyone who wants to talk more about this, please let me know. Obviously, always reach out to me, respond to emails, leave me a comment. And if you know someone going through a diagnosis like this, please share this with them. It may be exactly what they need. All right, talk to you later. Bye.